She walks through the morning, the sun barely high, a heart full of memories, a tear in her eye. Whispers of laughter still dance in the air, but the chair by the fire is empty and bare. Oh, love like a river, steady and true. 60 long years, just me and you. Now the wind sings your name in the tall pine trees. Carl, can you hear me in a Tennessee breeze?
The beloved husband of country music icon Dolly Parton, Carl Thomas Dean, passed away on March 3, 2025, leaving behind a legacy of quiet strength, unwavering love, and lifelong loyalty. For the past 60 years, Carl wasn't just Dolly's husband. He was her best friend, her biggest supporter, and the calm anchor behind her whirlwind of success. While the spotlight followed Dolly wherever she went, Carl chose a life in the background, offering her the freedom and space to chase every creative dream without ever demanding all of the attention for himself. Their relationship, built on deep respect and intentional privacy, stood as a quiet rebellion against the performative nature of fame. While the media often speculated and teased Dolly about hiding her husband, she always knew better. Protecting the serenity of their love was far more important than feeding public curiosity. In this video, we'll honor Carl Dean by sharing 9 facts about the man who chose love over limelight. Because sometimes, the greatest stories are the ones told not on stage, but in the quiet moments of a life well lived. Fact number 1. When Dolly first met Carl, he was working in the asphalt business with his father. A world far removed from rhinestones, recording studios, and the Grand Ole Opry. On the surface, they couldn't have been more different, a rising country star full of dreams and stage lights, and a quiet, grounded businessman who cherished his privacy. In the early days of their relationship, the young country star was overflowing with creativity and passion. She eagerly shared her songwriting process with Carl, letting him in on how her songs came to life, line by line. She wanted to include him in that magical part of her world. But it didn't take long for her to realize that Carl just wasn't that into it.
You know, I just used to, in our early days of marriage, I'd go in, I'd write something, and I'd be so excited about a certain verse, and he would listen, but I could tell he wasn't really all there. And so I thought early on, this is not my bouncing board. Wait till it's done. Nobody cares about the process.
It wasn't that he didn't support her. He just didn't need to understand every verse or melody to believe in her talent. Carl loved Dolly, not because she was a star, but because she was her. He didn't try to mold himself into something he wasn't. And he never asked her to either. Sometimes, it's those unlikely connections that create the strongest bonds. Their differences didn't divide them, they balanced each other. And that's where their story really begins. Fact number 2. While they were still dating, Carl made the decision to join the National Guard. It was a commitment that required discipline, time, and distance. But Dolly respected his choice completely. Instead of growing apart, they grew stronger. In her book Songteller, Dolly touches on a warm memory of visiting Carl during boot camp at Fort Stewart, Georgia. As the country megastar writes, he squeezed, hugged, and kissed me so hard that he knocked my wig off. Carl's time in the National Guard may have been a chapter in their early relationship, but the respect Dolly developed for service members never faded. She's often spoken about her love for the military, and you can hear it in the way she honors soldiers in her music. Whether through heartfelt lyrics or dedicated performances, Dolly's patriotism always felt deeply personal. Number 3. In 1966, the head of Dolly Parton's record label at that time, Fred Foster, called her into his office and asked her not to marry in the next year so that she would be available to work.
I was with Monument Records at the time, and they didn't want me to get married. They were spending a lot of money on prepping me for stardom and all that. So they told me, Monument, the record label, they said, well, we've spent too much money. Could you at least wait for 1 year till we know? But we don't really plan to get married. So we went the next weekend and got married. But we had to go to Ringgold, Georgia, because we didn't want it in the Tennessee papers that we got married.
She agreed not to, but that weekend Dolly and Carl headed to Ringgold, Georgia, 17 miles from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and got married. Back then, Ringgold was one of the few places where couples could get the marriage license, do blood test, and get officially married all in one day. After Dolly and Carl got their license, they headed to the Ringgold Baptist Church, where they married. Dolly has repeatedly broken boundaries by taking control of her career and life. And Carl was there to support her, prioritizing their relationship over everything else. Number 4. Carl chose to stay out of the spotlight, despite being married to one of the most famous entertainers in the world. In the early days of their relationship, he made an effort to attend some of her events, showing his support for her career. However, he quickly realized that the public eye wasn't where he felt comfortable.
Well, Carl dressed up in his tuxedo and went with me because I asked him to. That night after that, he said, look, this is your life, and I wish you the best, and I want you to have everything you want in this business, but don't ever ask me to go to another one of these things, these wing-dings.
Rather than conforming to expectations, Carl stayed true to himself and maintained a private life away from the cameras. His quiet presence and unwavering support from behind the scenes demonstrated a deep respect for Dolly's ambitions while also honoring his own boundaries. Showing that support doesn't always have to be center stage. Number 5. Carl's mother played a special role in Dolly's life. Dolly loved her mother-in-law, Virginia Dean, who was always kind to Dolly. The two got along very well, so much so that they even recorded a beautiful song together.
She wrote this song called God Hold My Hand. And I loved her so much, and she knew I was in the business, and I thought, well, this would be a good way for the two of us to kind of merge together. And
Dolly welcomed an opportunity to further strengthen her relationship with her mother-in-law. The song became part of her Golden Streets of Glory album in 1971.
I wanted to do it for Carl and for her, and we're all real proud of that, the Deans, that I have a song that, because she's long past now.
Number 6. Although Dolly and Carl were always doing well financially, their hearts belonged to the simple things. They spent their days traveling in their camper, visiting their favorite places in the Smoky Mountains, sipping coffee at sunrise, and finding joy in quiet places. Dolly described what she and her husband loved to do in her Songteller book.
We have a lot of things in common, too. We both like to travel around. We like to go. We have our little camper that we've always had, and we like to get out and just kind of sightsee, drive through restaurants, get some food, or stop at the grocery store and get a few little things, go picnicking. So we just like the simple things too. We don't complicate our lives, and we don't overthink things. We don't overdo it. And so we just kind of live a pretty peaceful life, actually.
Number 7. Dolly has shared with various media outlets that Carl was a big fan of Dollywood. Though he was never one for the spotlight and was never seen on red carpets, Dollywood was one place he'd quietly show up at from time to time. Despite being married to Dolly, he always refused special treatment, never accepting a free ticket. Instead, he preferred to come on his own, stand in line with everyone else, and buy a full-price ticket, just like any other guest. Number 8. Dolly dedicated quite a few love songs to her beloved husband, most of which were an expression of her deep love toward him. But there is one song that is based on Dolly's personal disappointing experience, in which her husband questioned her past, holding her to a different standard than himself. A few months into her marriage, her husband Carl asked her if she had been with other men before him.
And he asked me if I'd ever been with anybody else, and I thought, well, I don't want to start this marriage with a lie. But how do you say that, But I said, yeah, I had been.
Carl was so crushed with what he heard, but Dolly was disappointed even more than he was, because of his reaction.
So I go write this song, like, my mistakes are no worse than yours just because I'm a woman.
In her song, she addresses the double standards that exist in our society, where men and women are treated differently for making the same mistakes.
So it's kind of like I just addressed all those things, like, who the hell are you to think you deserve an angel, you know? So I just expressed that, and that song became a huge, huge hit.
With lines like "My mistakes are no worse than yours, just because I'm a woman," the legend delivers a bold, unapologetic message about gender inequality, especially for the time. While she's never been one to label herself a feminist, this song, and many others, proves that through her music, Dolly has always stood for women's rights, fairness, and self-worth, even inside her own marriage. And finally, number 9. Dolly and Carl were very well connected on the spiritual level.
I cannot tell you how many times I'll be sitting at home stewing over some decision I have to make. Carl will be sitting over on the couch, seemingly oblivious to everything I'm thinking. Then out of nowhere, he'll say something and I'll get all wide-eyed and say, "What'd you say?" So many times it will be exactly what I needed to hear. What he said had nothing specific to do with what I was thinking, but by saying what was on his mind and by being true and honest, he gives me the answers I need.
Over the decades, the country star's relationship with her husband has been mislabeled, gossiped about, and largely misunderstood. But those who really admire Dolly and choose to learn about her life through her books and interviews understand that this was a truly special marriage. A union based on respect, laughter, and a rare connection. He stayed behind the curtain's glow, while she lit stages row by row. But in her heart, he was the sun. Her quiet strength, her only one.